Good morning. How is everybody? All right. Hey, while I know many of you in the audience today, you likely don't know that I was born the son of a plumber. Humble beginnings, for sure. My guest today also has humble beginnings. In his career, he's had multiple sales and business development roles of progressing responsibility, which ultimately landed him in the role of President and Chief Operating Officer at VMware. He's a board member at Workday, Zoom Communications, Palo Alto Networks, UiPath, Cohesity, Snowflake Computing, Aurora, and is involved in so many different aspects of new and emerging technologies. He joined Sequoia Capital in 2016. Please welcome to Cloud Summit X, my friend, Carl Eschenbach.
Hi, Tim.
Welcome, Carl.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's definitely our pleasure. Thanks for making the trip. Hey, to get us started, why don't you take us through a little bit of your own personal background and your business journey?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here today. It's great to see so many friends and partners, former partners in the audience today. It's been a tremendous journey for Ingram and myself, and partnering with you for many, many years, and probably decades. I hate to show our age here, Tim, but we've been at it for a long time. So yeah, I grew up in Pennsylvania, in northeast Pennsylvania, in the Silicon Valley of Pennsylvania, way northeast in the woods. From very humble beginnings, a great set of parents, one sister, and just had a great upbringing in a very grounded, disciplined way. I left to go to college. I joined a university on a wrestling scholarship, and at that time, I thought I wanted to wrestle, and I was one semester into my college journey, and I made one of the probably most controversial decisions of my life, but also I think one that was a blessing in disguise. I decided to leave a four-year university to go to, if you will, the Harvard of tech schools, DeVry University. And I remember going home to my parents and saying, I think I'm going to make a transition. And they're like, really? That means now we got to pay for school? And what's this technology stuff? And I said to myself, well, I'm not sure, but I think it's something I want to go explore. And I made that journey and transition to DeVry. I call it university, but to be very honest, at the time it was DeVry Institute of Technology. I'm making it sound more sexy than it was, for a point. And then I got out of school and I got right into, if you will, a pre-sales engineering role. Started out in the PBX industry and then moved deep into infrastructure technology at companies like NET and 3Com and Lucent, and even a small stint at EMC. And then I joined my first startup company in 1998 called Inktomy, which was a company that emerged and grew. We took public during the internet boom days. It was doing content distribution, caching, and search engine technology. And then after that, I happened to meet a lady called Diane Green in 2002.
Oh, wow.
And she said, would you like to join? And I said, no, because I just committed to my wife. I lived on the East Coast, so I wasn't going to keep doing the commute, which I did for 4 years, living out of hotels in the Valley. But then after I met Diane, I remember driving away from the meeting, and I said, if she can really do what she says she can do, meaning she can take, these 100 widgets and put it on 10, I said to myself as I'm driving home, I can sell that shit silly. And I can build a technology ecosystem and go-to-market model around it. There was 200 people, and what a blessing in disguise. Almost 15 years later, 200 people to 20,000 people, almost zero revenue, $7 billion. So it was just an amazing journey, Tim. But then it was time to do something different. I had 3 children about to go into high school 3 years ago. They're all in high school today. And my wife and I said for the next 4 years, there's nothing more important than being there with the family. At which time I had the tremendous opportunity to join Sequoia Capital, which is one of the most, if not the most iconic venture firm ever. 45 years of rich history, and it's a tremendous platform. I thought for myself to bring all of my mistakes and learnings to it and share with other companies as I think about investing.
Yep. Well, I know on that journey, there are a lot of people that you've met along the way, mentors, different leaders. Tell us, who's been the number one mentor that just really sits in your mind today?
Yeah, it's a great question. In the business world, Tim, I never really had a true mentor. I'm a big study of leadership and think about leadership a lot, so I watch people and how they lead, what they do well, what not to do. But I'd say my true mentor is my father. My father was an amazing man, and he taught me a couple things that have stuck with me throughout my entire life. Number one, he taught me that my attitude will determine my altitude in life.
Good one.
He taught me that will beat skill any day, and grit is really important. And then the thing that he probably taught me more than anything else, this might sound a bit morbid, so excuse me for talking about it. My father was a really interesting guy. He got out of the service, didn't have a lot of education, and he decided, in Northeast Pennsylvania to buy a Dairy Queen and open up a Dairy Queen. Anyone know what a Dairy Queen is?
Yeah.
What he didn't realize, though, in the winter, you don't sell ice cream.
Whoops.
So,
Yeah.
So this is him. Maybe this is the entrepreneurial spirit I have in me a little bit. He decided to, in the wintertime, sell Christmas trees. So he started buying land, and we planted Christmas trees, and we did all of this stuff. And he was just an amazing man. And to this day, he's still my mentor. Unfortunately, if I could be transparent, I was so enthralled in VMware, making every damn quarter. He was living in Florida, he got ill, and I wasn't there. And I have a lot of regrets about not being there. But I have a connection to him because the thing he taught me is, he taught me about the brain. And we sit in this room, we talk a lot about technology. We talk about the power of technology, but there's probably no more powerful technology than the human brain.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Tim, the human brain is also a very complex, if you will, supercomputer. It has two sides, and it can confuse the hell out of you. You ever get in those decisions where you go to bed one night and you're thinking, I'm going to do this, or I go to bed the next night, I'm going to do this, and it just confuses yourself. You have to get all the data, and he taught me your brain can confuse you if you let it become your only point of making decisions. And he said to me, son, he said, if you or a family member becomes brain dead, we can keep you alive a long time.
Right.
And I was like, okay. And he said, let me talk to you about your heart. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay. And he basically described to me the fact that while the heart is not the biggest muscle in your body, he said it's the only one that matters.
Yeah.
Because when your heart dies, you die.
Yep.
He said, so follow your heart when you make those big decisions or those challenging decisions or those inflection points in your life. And to this day, every night when I walk past my son's room, who's now in 10th grade, Tim, I walk in there, he lays in bed, I literally look at him, he knows it's coming, he's laying there, and I punch him in the heart, and I say, son, it's all about your heart. And it kind of gives me a 3-generational from my son to me to my Father in heaven. And it allows me to still have that connection. Now, I'm not going to say there isn't some nights I feel like putting my hand through his chest lately,
Yep.
But I somehow restrain myself. And
Yep.
so it's my father more than anything else, I'd say. But it's not that you don't learn from people. I learn from you, spending time with you in the back. We're lifelong learners, so we always have to learn.
I agree.
But I didn't have really a mentor in the professional world that I looked to. I looked to the heavens for my father more than anything else.
Yep. I get that. That's important to me, too. From a leadership perspective, how do you think about leadership? What's your philosophy?
Yeah, wow. I know we don't have much time. I could spend all day on this.
We're all softballs.
Yeah.
Come on, yeah.
I just love leadership. I guess there's a couple things I'd highlight on leadership. I think some of the greatest leaders are always humble, grounded, and authentic. And I always try to pride myself remembering, where I came from, try to remember where I'm at, and I know where I'm going, and try to be that same person along the way. Try to be that same knucklehead kid from Silicon Valley, Pennsylvania, along the journey. I also think energy and enthusiasm is highly contagious.
I do too.
I think organizations and companies at times run at the pace of their leaders, so just having someone who walks down the hall, says good morning, looks at people, you're in the elevator, they're talking to people. You ever see the leaders who their heads are down, they don't say hi in the cafeteria? Come on. Energy, and any day above the ground is a damn good day, so show energy, right?
Yeah.
And then I think there's a couple different types of leaders. There's leaders who are motivational leaders, and everyone loves motivational leaders. But when you think about a motivational leader, Tim, it's much more about a push technique. Motivation is pushing something.
Yeah.
Then there's the other type of leaders who are more inspirational leaders. Inspirational leaders are leaders who pull people in. They want to be part of your organization. They want to be with you. They don't want to let you down.
Yeah.
And then when you can combine those two, have a motivational leader and an inspirational leader, they find the line between pushing and driving people to be their best, but sucking them in to do something for a greater cause is a very powerful leadership approach. And the last thing, over probably the last 15 years, I've been a big study of servant leadership. And I think servant leadership, while people talk about it, I don't think they really truly understand it if you spend a lot of time around it. Just think about the word servant and then the word leadership. I think everyone thinks about leadership, but if you think about the first word in servant, servant is to serve.
Right.
And the greatest way to lead is to serve and follow your people, and they will come along with you and just join you over time. So it's not about leading; it's about following and being there for your people.
Yeah.
I just enjoy leadership and learned a lot over the years, and made a lot of mistakes too. That's for sure.
So I want to kind of take it in a different direction. You had the privilege of leading a startup, if I could call VMware a startup, right? 200 employees to 20,000 employees. What's it like to servant lead that kind of a meteoric growth rate?
Yeah, and it was a privilege. I mean, a lot of people say, how did you know? Did you know you were going to be able to scale? And if I sat up here and said that, I'd be completely bullshitting and be completely disingenuous. No one knows when you join a young company that you're going to be able to scale to where we did and where VMware continues to go today. It's an absolutely amazing company. It was an amazing journey. I would say the reason we were able to scale is we were maniacal about focusing on culture. I think great people build great companies, and I hate to break the news to everyone, but it's not if, it's when all of you run into a situation in your careers or in your company where you hit the wall. And character is defined by how you respond to those. And I think you can't respond to challenges unless you have the right culture. And I think VMware's culture and value system to this day, I'm highly biased, obviously, after almost 15 years there, but I think that was as powerful as anything we did. The other thing I would say is we stayed horizontal as long as we could, and still probably to this day, meaning we didn't start, a lot of people talk about, let's build vertical solutions, let's go vertical. There's a reason buildings can only be built so high, but you can build one a mile long, right? And it can continue to scale. So we stayed horizontal as long as we could to try to build that platform in the data center. And the other thing we used to talk about is what I described at the time as simplify to scale. Because as we grew the business and we got more and more layers of management, we had more and more controls and processes in place and more compliance that we had to follow, obviously, as we became a public company. It was important for us to make sure that we could stay as simple as possible because we didn't want to put any sand in the gears of the go-to-market model. So we tried to simplify, and it's the same in life. If you or I run into issues or challenges, what do people tell you to do? Go back to what? Basics. Why? Because it's simple.
Right.
And then the last thing I'd say is we did a nice job of promoting from within as we were scaling, because you have to be careful when you're in a hyper-growth mode and numbers mask all issues and people are all doing well and you can promote too early. So I think we found a nice balance of promoting people within and also recognizing, hey, we're going to be really successful here. We got to go hire people that VMware could grow into as opposed to people that would grow with VMware. So it was a nice balance between internal promotions and showing people career paths to hiring from outside. I think next up is Robin Matlock from VMware, their CMO. I saw her just emerge through the organization, and look at her. She's the CMO of one of the most powerful companies out there. She's doing an amazing job.
That's exciting. So VMware, big company, meteoric growth. You joined Sequoia Capital in 2016. What were the unexpected kind of ahas as you make that pivot?
Yeah, so The funny thing is, I was actually, I don't know if it was me or my family, I was looking forward to not having another quarter end, stressing out, getting pimples like I was 16 years old, trying to make the quarter again, calling everyone, or I was looking forward to not getting on an earnings call, which is like, for those people who have done them, it's pretty stressful because they can do any or ask anything they want. Sure. In about 6 months into my new journey at Sequoia, I'm like, I miss that. So I don't know if I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie, so I miss that. But at the same time, at Sequoia, I've really learned how to take everything I've learned and what people helped me do in my career and now instill it in some of the smartest, most intelligent entrepreneurs I'd ever met and bring that to a new set of, or a new generation of people to help them grow, build, and scale, and doing it behind the scenes instead of out in front, which has been a lot of fun. And then the other thing I think was the biggest transition, moving from that kind of 90-day cadence, being what I would used to call strategically tactical, making the number, to now thinking instead of quarters, my quarters are more along the lines of thinking 4 years out, 8 years out, because these companies have to grow and emerge over time. So it's our responsibility to help them do that. So I find, the transition from being a little bit tactical to being much more strategic and slowing down and thinking more long-term about technology transitions was one of the other things that I've really enjoyed and had to learn to do, quite frankly.
That's exciting. Yesterday, we talked about the Comet Challenge and got to hear about some really exciting new and emerging technologies and companies. We heard from Peter Levine yesterday at Andreessen, and they're doing some really exciting work in new advancing technologies. We're excited to have you here. Where do you see the hot technologies, maybe for this room, from your chair?
Yeah, I guess one of the things I'd say is, data. We know every single day there's an explosion of data.
Yeah.
And with more and more data being created every day because of the power of the user and the power of the devices and the power of the data centers and cloud, there's just so much more capacity for data.
Sure.
And as there's more data, there's more opportunity to store it, to secure it, to analyze it. So I think data to me is a very big theme right now when I think about how to invest or how we think about partnering with some of our portfolio companies. And when you have a big, rich data set, Tim, there are all different types of opportunities to monetize it. So data, to me, is kind of the new currency. So the more data you have, the more monetization opportunity you can think about. At the same time, the more data you have, the more you can train or educate your AI and ML models.
Sure.
And everyone talks about, what do you see at Sequoia? Do you see a lot of AI and ML companies coming in? Actually, we don't, because I think AI and ML should be built in, not bolted on, because it's looking at the data and how it's going. So, we think about data and we think about how to monetize it, and we think about some of the things you can do once you have a rich set of data. So I think it's all about data. Then we see some interesting evolutions in security. Security is kind of I always say CISOs don't have a budget if you talk to the enterprise CISOs. And what I mean by that is they have unlimited budget to make sure they're trying to protect. So you see companies like Palo Alto who are moving away from just network-centric firewalls to thinking about protecting the cloud. There's a really interesting company called Armis. You plug in their technology, it's agentless, and it discovers everything in your infrastructure, probably 2 to 3x the devices you even think you have.
Wow.
So I think there's a lot of innovation in security that will still happen, and it's an area of investment I'd be making if I was a solution provider.
Oh, that's insightful, thanks. So you've been a friend of Ingram's for a long, long time. You've heard certainly about the things that we're discussing here at Cloud Summit X. Give us your point of view on Ingram and cloud.
Yeah, so first, cloud is a very disruptive technology, but more important business model transition that people need to go through. It's disruptive for everyone in here. It's disruptive for Ingram to their existing business model. And quite frankly, it's disruptive to your end users because the cloud, technology transitions are relatively easy. They continue to happen. Technology leapfrogs each other. Business model transformations are really hard.
Yeah.
And you're moving from an OpEx model or a CapEx model to an OpEx model. You're moving from selling bent tin and blinking lights that we all for 30 years,
Right.
like me, kept warm around. Now you're selling bits, and you're selling things on demand. So it's a really interesting transition. With that, though, it drives innovation. The technology and the rapid transformation of technology because of things like the cloud are happening quickly, and Ingram is backing it. I was telling Tim earlier, I remember about 10 years ago we had a meeting with the Ingram executives, and they said, we're going to go out and build this cloud platform. And interesting enough, we're Cloud X here.
Yeah.
10 years ago we had this
Crazy.
conversation, and when I think about the platform you built, the richness of the ecosystem of technology companies on the platform, and the cloud awesomeness, program that you just talked about up here with Renee, I think you're well ahead of most people out there when it comes to being a very strategic distribution partner. And the fact that you're willing to disrupt your own business model and then take that and help these folks disrupt a very traditional business model in the solution provider space, I think sets you apart from many others out there. And it was literally 10 years ago, I remember having this meeting that you were going to build this. Now sitting here with 1,500 people, 10 years later, it's very impressive. Well done.
Yeah, quite an event, huh?
Yeah, very good.
Yep. So we've talked a little bit about technologies. We've talked about Ingram's focus in really helping to identify where that catalog grows to next. Clearly, our partners are hearing from their customers. They want more and more solutions from smaller numbers of providers. So I know many of the partners are here evaluating what are the next right solutions to add to their portfolio. Many companies, I'm sure, in the room would be interested to get your point of view on how they better engage with some of the portfolio companies that you're involved with.
Yeah, so I think about this kind of tectonic shift to cloud, and when I say cloud, I don't mean all cloud, I mean truly hybrid cloud. I think we'll live in a hybrid world for forever. It's not all going, it's not, an or solution, it's an and going forward. So I think we're going to live in this hybrid world, but if I was a solution provider, I think about the technology ecosystem and the rapid rise of the startups in two dimensions. One, who are category-creating companies that actually are going to build a new vertical market solution that doesn't exist today, and how do I take them into my customers? And then I think about how do I go and partner with people who are going to disrupt very traditional legacy markets that haven't had innovation because bigger companies are in those markets and they have the innovator's dilemma. They can't innovate. So, emerging market providers are people like, a Medallia whose customer experience platform is transitioning and changing the way people think about how they engage with their customers. More people who are disrupting existing markets are companies like a Cohesity that you mentioned earlier. It's really driving a different type of backup solution.
Right.
Or, any of the other companies in that space. So I think about sitting in this room, building practices around taking emerging companies to market, or taking companies to markets that have not been disrupted. And I always would like to encourage the people in the room to be a little bit progressive. They have tremendous long-term relationships with their customers.
Yeah.
So going in and sharing with them new innovative technologies before someone else does it, because you never want to be that solution provider that says, well, we also do that. You're already on your heels. You're not on the tip of your toes. So disrupt yourself and show that you're innovative as you work with your customers and partners. And lastly, build services. Like this transition to cloud is not easy for customers. There's a technology hurdle you have to overcome. There's a cultural hurdle. There's a business model hurdle. So building those practices like Renee spoke about is really important, because the thing we can't ever forget is technology is amazing and it's powerful.
Right.
But technology only enables change. It doesn't drive it. What drives it are people sitting in this room who have to implement it and actually drive the transition, leveraging the technology. Because you can have the greatest technology in the world, unless people implement it, it doesn't matter. So just be innovative, drive disruption of yourself and your customers, and be on the tip of your toes as opposed to heel your feet, and show that to your customers.
It's kind of interesting to me, listen to you answer that last question. We started talking about heart, and we kind of finished with the heart of the companies and where they're going and where they really see the future for their own organizations. We've covered a lot of ground. We got a couple of seconds left, actually. What parting thoughts do you have for the audience?
Listen, it's a great time to be in technology, whether you're reselling, all of the people that you partner with today, and those people are here in the room. Innovation engine is wildly growing rapidly. There's a lot of venture capital money that's out there, so innovation is at one of the peaks that we've ever seen. I just encourage people to disrupt themselves before others disrupt them. And I always think about the term, if the world outside of your company is changing faster than you, death is near. So drive disruption to yourself, drive disruption to your customers, and partner with innovators like yourself on the distribution side who understand you had to disrupt yourself. Now you need to disrupt your business partners and your customers. And when that triangulation comes together, I think it's a great time to be in this industry. And enjoy the journey, but always do it in a compliant, high-integrity way and stay grounded along that journey.
Carl, thanks again for your time.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it.
I know you got a lot going on.
Thank you.
Pleasure.